Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the unlucky round 13 of the CCRL Elite Tier season, and it is once again redemption night here at Circuit Spa in Belgium. We got at least 18 drivers on the grid tonight for what could be a very much season make or season break event here tonight. Hotspot on the call, just soloing it this time. Hope buddy trackside there gets well soon. But if you're unfamiliar how this redemption format works, it is basically they take the reverse order of the championship standings, the drivers' championship standings, put them in the sprint race. So P1 in the standings will go to the last spot on the grid, and then this sprint race will set the starting grid for the Grand Prix. Now, if you were with us last time we had this format in Brazil a couple of weeks ago, that was a very great race to be had, mostly because we had some of the obviously the top drivers on the grid started at the back. Knick-Knack and Guzman and the rest still managed to make their way up through the grid, and it was like an 8-lap sprint. There was just I have no idea how they did it that quickly. But here we are in Spa. I mean, what a great decision to have it here. I mean, you think of the good track, you think of the greatest circuits in the world. You think of Silverstone, you think of Monza, you think of the Nürburgring, you think of Le Mans, you think of Bathurst, at least in my opinion. You definitely think of Spa in that list as well. And this track is, well, it's known for its carnage, but it's also known for the great racing it can provide. And in the dry and the sprint race here, we do know that will happen. What we do know is that the sprint will stay dry. It is, I believe, the Grand Prix, which is set to the unknown weather. So we could get some rain coming into the race here. But again, I don't necessarily want to see rain. I think the racing has gotten much better in the dry. So I think it should be very good to see here. Well, it's going to be a real tricky decision on who makes it out of La Source, the first corner, as the leader of the Grand Prix, and can they hold on and stay out of trouble? That's going to be the big question here, is how these drivers are going to be able to react, knowing that a lot of the faster guys at the back will be looking to make up spots. It's an interesting dilemma they have, because now they have to decide, do I play offense, do I play defense? As we look at the results last week from the 100% Grand Prix in Zandvoort, which I gotta say, we spent nearly 50 out of the 70 laps with drivers within 1 second in DRS range of each other. It was Johnny Damon taking it last week, Walrus second, Knick-Knack in third, and the other Alfa Romeo. That Alfa Romeo team has been doing very, very well. Coming into tonight, they are naturally atop the constructor standing at 603 points. Mercedes 428. Aston Martin not all that far behind, only 9 points behind in P3 at 419. McLaren 332, AlphaTauri 319. That's a good little battle there going for P4. The battle, well, you could say Ferrari's in that as well. P6 at 298. They could have a good result and really get to it here. Battle for 7th, Red Bull at 209. Haas at 206. The battle for 9th as well. Alpine at 150. Williams at 122. So, realistically, every constructor, I think Alfa Romeo might be the only constructor on the grid knowing that they might be safe relatively from challengers, at least for now. Every other team on the grid has something to play for here, and that is exactly what these guys have been demonstrating week in, week out. These guys show absolutely no quit whatsoever. A quick note that the formation lap is off. I hear there have been some slight glitches being made with that. I'm not rightly sure what the problems are, but the problems are there. And, well, we're not going to have it on. So, your first look at the grid tonight as they pull off the the starting grid into the first corner is going to be all I know as well, so please bear with me. But I tell you what, it's been an absolute pleasure joining you so far this season. Coming up in the next couple of weeks here, we do have Canada, Montreal next time out, March the 13th, Miami the week after, and Portimao, another redemption night, coming up on March 27th. Portimao, that's going to be a fun one for redemption, because that's not necessarily like an overtake-heavy track. That's one you really got to work for. So, I mean, the redemptions we've had so far, great circuits, and here they go again. 4 lights, 5 lights as well. It's the McLaren on the front row, the Red Bull second, and they are off for the sprint race here. John the Prince will lead them into the first corner. He has not had the best start, though. Down to the inside is Hemphead, and I think he may have gotten away better, but it is Agnote around the outside, and he will take the lead. It's Tony Lenza and Hemphead. They were side by side, wheel to wheel. That's a big collision at the back. Championship contenders in play. Johnny Damon's in it, Reimer's in it, Urban's in it, Pontiac Bandit's in it. So much happening there at the back as they exit La Source, and Agnote has the lead here, but only for now, as behind Tony Lenta trying to find a move around Hemphead. They'll go down the inside on the way in oh goodness me, what corner is this? This is Lacombe's chicane here, and now as they go through Malmedy, it does appear that Tony Lenta will have the position. Charlie Gulf not all that far behind. He'll look to get on the podium here, but absolute calamity and disaster for the drivers who really needed to stay out of trouble the most. Agnote, who has had a very rough string of races these past couple of weeks, one of the drivers with noticeably worse luck than many others at the moment, stays P1, and by a second already. That top three drivers slightly spread out here. John the Prince now battling with Charlie Gulf. This is for the 4th spot, as it looks as if a nice 3-car battle here. Perhaps even Curveball trying to get in on this as well, but Curveball slightly off the pace of the cars ahead. We'll have to wait and see if he can come back up. I'm just wondering what happened off the start there. Did somebody try to go around the outside? Contact was definitely made at some points, but now Guzman in the McLaren, one of the hottest drivers of the grid recently, down to the inside at a 4-race win streak going into last week of the Netherlands, and here he is. He's up to P7 already. He has certainly stayed out of trouble, and he is on his way to a good starting position here if he can keep it together. It's an 8-lap sprint this, followed by 22 laps of a Grand Prix. A lot of racing tonight, but I'm sure after the 71 laps of Zandvoort last week, it'll be a welcome change. Down to the back, Angry Walrus, who also last time in the Redemption had a very good race as well. He's up 6 spots up to P10. Knick-Knack Paddywhack up 8 spots up there to P9, and I'm glad that he was actually able to get away from that, as now the battle for the lead. Tony Lenta, does he look down to the inside of Agnote into Lacombe? Oh, this is a tough one. If he takes too much of the curve on the inside, he could go around. No, he's held it, stays on the outside, and does get the spot, and into Malmedy they go, and Tony Lenta takes the top spot as himself and Agnote go wide out of Malmedy. Charlie Gulf will then move around the Red Bull there. Look how wide Tony Lenta got through Brussels then. He almost really went off track, but he was able to hold it together. Agnote has not had himself a good string of corners, but at least for the time being, as it looks as if John the Prince may have had something happen there. We do have a yellow flag at the back. For whatever reason, the track map is off, so I can't quite tell why that is. But for the time being, at least, Guzman up 10 spots. Knick-Knack not all that far behind, mind you, up 10 spots as well. He's P6, and the more these drivers continue to battle, our championship leader is going to find his way back here. So now this is interesting. Now do we see John the Prince and the McLaren try to defend a little bit more and try to make sure that Knick-Knack does not get a good enough opportunity to try to overtake Guzman here. Remember, these two have been championship rivals pretty much throughout at least my time watching them, perhaps even before that. Yellow flag at the back. Urban is not having a good time at making his way into Puhan now. Guzman down to the inside. He'll get around... well, I tell you what, that was a better overtake than I initially thought. He will get around Agnote there. And as they make their way down the pit straight, there goes Knick-Knack down to the inside on Agnote as well. Agnote, unfortunate for him that he's kind of falling positions here, but as long as he keeps it clean, he'll be fine. It is more about, keeping that car, in your control and keeping it within reach here. And I think as long as Agnote can do that and not have a spin or anything, he'll be just fine. Tony Lenta still has the lead here. Charlie Gulf in his slipstream. He's trying to find the inside in the Haas, but can Hemphead make his way around the outside? No! He's actually going to break early, and Guzman's going to send it to the right side, into Lacombe. Contact being made there, and the McLaren goes into the grass, keeps the car under control, but definite contact being made there. And if you're Knick-Knack Paddywhack, you'll know that those penalties can be applied into the actual Grand Prix if anything happens in the sprint. That's how he lost the race in Brazil, the actual Grand Prix, on Steward Reports. Angry Walrus now down to the inside of Agnote. This is going into Puhan. The double left-handed corner downhill. I mean, one of the most difficult corners you could ever drive on. And Agnote has found that difficult as well, as John the Prince will make his way down to the inside, and he'll get that 7th spot. I think I finally have a moment to catch my breath here. It's been brilliant racing so far, and yet again what we're seeing here, Guzman now down to the inside, and Hemphead has left him plenty of room there, and he will make way for both Guzman and Knick-Knack. Pontiac picking up a 3-second penalty at the moment. He's kind of free of losing any positions. But I tell you what, Guzman and Knick-Knack, this is similar to what we saw in Brazil. Matter of fact, it's exactly what we saw in Brazil. But what we didn't see was Hemphead. Oh, I tell you what, that one almost got wacky there. He had really tried to send it down to the inside, and I'm glad he didn't make contact with the Alfa Romeo. That would have been poor, but the three drivers we thought were going to gravitate towards the top of the grid have done just that. Angry Walrus up to 5th, Knick-Knack up to 4th, and Guzman to 3rd. But for the time being, those top 2 spots of Tony Lenta and Charlie have been slightly, I mean, I don't want to say not under pressure, but they're not necessarily under attack from Guzman at the moment. Guzman could get Charlie through the next DRS zone, or maybe even if Charlie doesn't have that good of a lap here. But as I say that now, the top 3 spots within half a second here. Hemphead back there trying to make something happen around John the Prince. That's making their way. And a yellow flag. And, well, I wish I was along with it, because John the Prince, he's gone off straight into the barriers outside of the entry to Malmedy. And, well, that is not a good one there for the McLaren, and I'm sure something has happened beyond what I could have saw, and I'm just wondering, does anyone have wing damage in the vicinity here? Yep, Hemphead has some on the left front side of his front wing. Interesting there, but what I do know is John the Prince now, well, there's not much to be said. That is not ideal whatsoever. Thankfully, it looks as if it will stay a virtual safety car here, which is good. Not really enough race to bring out the full safety car, and I think that virtual race control has actually got that one right, which is slightly surprising. Not oftentimes do they do that. Tony Lenta, as well, I tell you what, he's held the lead since he took it away from Agnoté. That was, I believe, on the second lap of the sprint race here. And, well, here he is, still atop. DRS re-enabled here as the track goes green. We'll have 4 laps to go this time by as Tony Lenta makes his way out of the bus stop chicane here and tries to make his way down to La Source. He's not under pressure from Charlie, although Charlie nearly had that car spin away from him exiting the chicane, and Guzman nearly looked as if he was going to be able to be in a position to take the spot. For the time being, though, let's see how good of a run they get out of Rouge and Radion here. That's going to really dictate who's going to get this spot as they go down the Kemmel Straight, one of the fastest stretches of land in the entirety of F1. I'm just curious. Let's see what top speeds they hit. They're hitting 205 almost by the time before they even get to the DRS section. Top speed for Guzman there, 217 miles an hour as Angry Walrus getting around Knick-Knack there. Very nicely done. It looks as if the Alpha Tauri, well, I tell you what, some good battling going on here. Owa down to the inside of Reimer. Oh, and Owa's had help from behind. Scheisty and the Haas got into him there. That was on the way in to the La Source chicane, and Owa will find the barriers on the outside, and I'm hoping he hasn't lost any front wing, because that one, well, I tell you what, he did hit it a ton, and yeah, the end plate on the right front is gone for the Red Bull there. Very unfortunate, but I'm afraid these sprints kind of do breed that sort of incidents as, you know, all the drivers are really close together. It looks as if we had something happen. Scheisty's gone round there. Reimer's made his way up to P7 after getting the spot from Hemphead. It looks as if Guzman has gotten around Charlie at some point, and now we'll look to the inside of Tony Lenta, and I'm thinking this might be an easy one here for Guzman if he stays around the outside through Blanchimont there. It's a very difficult section to go side-by-side through, and Guzman has done that, but now does Tony Lenta try to challenge around the outside into the bus stop chicane? He'll have to go deep in the corner. He'll have the apex on the way out. Oh, very close there, but Guzman does pull away, and, well, I tell you what, Tony Lenta's doing well to hold on here. We have 3 laps to go now as they make their way into La Source. Charlie in the Haas here after being overtaken by Guzman. He's been able to get that car back, I would say, kind of under his control. He's looking quite well. Angry Walrus has not yet had the opportunity to overtake him, this time up through Rouge and Radion. Let's see if that changes as they make their way down the Kemmel Straight now. What I will say is this, Guzman is under a lot of pressure here from Tony Lenta. Tony's going to try to switch to the outside and into the Lacombe chicane. He's going to outbrake the McLaren, and a beautiful move from Tony Lenta to make that one happen against one of the league's best. Oh, and contact made, and the McLaren goes around at the back. Well, he held on temporarily, but now he's off. Well, Tony Lenta's around as well, and I really thought that the McLaren kind of got into the back of the Alpine there. The Alpine had gone wide, and then suddenly Guzman nearly held the car together, and I don't know if it was just overcorrection or what the error was, but that is a big blow to the McLaren team. Both drivers will be starting on the 9th row of the grid for the Grand Prix. And Tony Lenta as well, who I think was, I don't want to say a bystander in that accident, but I don't think it was necessarily his fault, was it? Johnny Damon, 3-second penalty for him. Charlie Gulf, who has the lead for the time being, kind of looks like that car might be on the understeer side of it as he was going through, whatever corner it was there. If he was going through Stavilo, it looked as if that car was pushing to the outside. But now, as if the pressure wasn't on already, he's got two of the quickest drivers in the CCRL behind him. And now let's see, Nick Nack is in a position now where I think the pressure is, I don't want to say the pressure is off of him, but when you got Walrus ahead, Walrus is definitely looking to make headway in the championship here, as Nick Nack, that car nearly went around from him there, exiting La Source. But as they go up the hill through Eau Rouge and Radion, Nick Nack is no longer within DRS range of the two cars ahead. He is now outside by almost a second and a half. He will not have it here. I was hoping not. That would have been a massive error if he did. Walrus now is going to look down to the inside, and can Walrus find the overtake? Oh, they're going to be side by side. Charlie actually outbraked him there on the left side into the corner. That was nice defending from the Haas. Coming up on about a lap and a half to go here as Pontiac Bandit. Oh, and Tony Lenta's off, and another heavy hitter in the sprint here is off the track, and that's to the inside of the Kemmel Straight. So he definitely had contact with another driver there, because there's no reason that car should have been to the right side of the circuit like that. That is a massive turn of events there. And three drivers who were looking for great, looking like they were on pace for great starting positions in the Grand Prix. Well, that's exactly the opposite of what they'll have now. So coming up on one lap to go this time by, Walrus has about 2.5 tenths to the lead here. And let's just take a look at his telemetry now. He's only about 20% on the battery. Charlie ahead is not much better, only about 10% more. It's the AlphaTauri of, I want to say that's Pontiac Bandit. Yeah, he's gone off, exiting Pouhon there. Making their way through the bus stop chicane here, about to enter the final lap of the Grand Prix. Nick Nack, after being about a second and a half down, entering Eau Rouge last time, now will go into La Source within half a second of Angry Walrus and could very well be a player in this battle for the lead. Remember, the winner of the sprint naturally will get the top starting spot in the Grand Prix. Up through Eau Rouge and Radion now, Angry Walrus has had a much better go of the uphill section that time, and it's looking like this overtake will be on here. Nick Nack is too far behind to make anything happen, as Walrus down to the inside, and the Aston Martin will take the top spot. And what a comfortable situation that would be for Walrus if Charlie is the driver to finish second here. Any sort of mix-up between Charlie and Nick Nack could result in a great result for Angry Walrus come the Grand Prix. Into the Speaker's Corner, or the no-name corner now. I believe only recently it's been named Speaker's Corner, but look at Nick Nack down to the inside into Pouhon. Are you out of your mind? Side by side, and, well, I'll be damned, they're taking it cleanly. Contact being made there. That was slightly inevitable as Curveball. That is exiting Brussels on the way into Speaker's Corner. Oh, and there's the contact, and both of them go around! Goodness me, what a calamity this is. That is going to pretty much ensure the win for Angry Walrus here. R. Manson will get up to third, Reimer up to fourth. Charlie takes the brunt of it. He's still in the gravel. Come to find out, it wasn't the difficult corner that provided the action there. Well, Angry Walrus, well, there's not much to say. Check his heart rate, because it's gone up about 150. He's going to come across the line and win the sprint race here and start on pole for the Grand Prix. Nick Nack, well, how's he done this? He's up to second. I don't know if he stayed there or not. Did he not get overtaken by R. Manson? It must not have been. Well, it's a Aston Martin 1 and 3 here. Reimer's been promoted up to fourth, and Reimer on the soft tires as well. That's a slightly uncommon strategy, what we saw here. Only two drivers on the softs. Well, a lot of heavy hitters will be starting at the back. That's all there has to be said. Angry Walrus is going to have Nick Nack to his outside into La Source, but Walrus can ride high for now because it's a great effort from him. Goodness me. Well, I mean, there wasn't even that much drama in Brazil. I knew coming to Spa here we were going to have something happen, and, well, that's about that. Both the McLarens starting in the 9th row of the grid. Curveball, who was P7, P8 on that final lap there, lap before, and something happened with him. Tony Lento we saw get into it with Guzman, and then about a lap and a half, 2 laps later, that car found the barriers, and, well, that's going to result in, that's going to result in Angry Walrus taking the top spot. Driver of the day, well, yeah, I'd say so. So your starting grid, then, for the Belgian Grand Prix here. Walrus on pole, Nick Nack second, R. Manson third. It's a great result for the Aston Martin so far. Let's see if they can hold it. Reimer fourth, up from 13th on the grid. Merck fifth. Charlie 6th, Hemphead 7th, Bong 8th, Johnny Damon 9th after having a bit of a tough opening lap there. Anyo Tay 10th, Shiesty 11th, 12th is Owa, 13th Urban, 14th is Pontiac, and unfortunately the drivers listed behind did not finish, and therefore start at the back. Well, Guzman's got a mountain to climb here, as well as John the Prince, and, well, I tell you what, Tony Lento was showing some good pace there, but Angry Walrus has a good one here. Let's see if he can hold on for the race. So, after what I'm assuming is one of the wildest sprint races you'll ever see, we still have 22 laps of the Circuit Spa here yet to come. I mean, could you ask for much more? Angry Walrus will have pole. Let's take a minute here. Let's actually look at our driver standings coming into today. Nick Nack at the top spot at 342 points. Walrus in second at 294. He's not out of this fight. If he can have a good result today, he can be firmly planted in this battle for the top spot here. Guzman's got a little bit more work to do. P3 at 263. Johnny Damon not all that far behind. It's a good little battle amongst the podium positions here. Well, he's in fourth at 261. Reimer not far behind as well at 251. Then it kind of drops off a little bit. Pontiac Bandit at 180. Merck 175, Urban 169, nice. Curveball 139, Owa 135. Old and Slow, that's about the best username I've ever seen, at 125. Bong at 123. The pair of the Haas's 13th and 14th there. And those are the drivers getting into below the 100-point range. Charlie has, it appears something has gone on with the Haas of Charlie. Yep, there he is. He's joined back again. Something had gone on with his wheel, so good that he's able to join. Now, it is a sunny day here for now. Whether it stays that way or not is going to be the question. What we did know was that the sprint was going to be dry. We didn't know if the proper Grand Prix itself was going to be. Now we have the opportunity to find out. As, don't tell me I lagged out here. Please. 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 There he is. He's joined again. Let me tell you something. Anytime I see that message on the bottom of the screen pop up, I have, like, PTSD, man. There was a race a couple of months ago I commentated in Zandvoort. It wasn't CCRL, but goodness me, I think I lagged out and rejoined probably 8 times. And every time I see those messages at the bottom of the screen with drivers leaving and joining, it does get my heart rate going a little bit, because I definitely want to be around to see the action today, as I do every week. I want to take the moment to thank you for allowing us into your homes and onto your phones for this Grand Prix, on the eve of the first practice sessions, plural, for the 2024 Saudi Arabian Grand Prix. Remember, that race is on a Saturday this time around. I believe that has something to do with Ramadan. I'm not quite sure. I think that is something to do with it, but I'm expecting another Max Verstappen dominant performance again. We'll have to wait and see. I don't know. I could be wrong. There's a lot of drama surrounding him, as I'm sure you've seen. So, you never know. But Angry Walrus here, just waiting for the... formation lap is still not on, so Angry Walrus will have this go into the first corner. He'll have the inside into La Source, which is, I would argue, the better place to be. There's not much of a run around the outside through La Source. You kind of have to ride the curb on exit, which will slow you, and oversteer is certainly possible, and always the possibility of drivers getting in behind you there and hitting the rear wing and sending you for a spin. So if Walrus can get off the line well here, I mean, it very well could be a situation where he does begin to walk away with about a second advantage here, because the drivers behind him will certainly be in calamity. Although what I will say in favor of Guzman and the two McLarens, it's almost like that kind of Monaco situation where you either want to start at the very top or you want to start at the back. The McLaren starting at the back at least might save them from carnage here on the opening lap. They'll have a lot of work to do, sure, but at the very least they know they'll be safe, assuming they can keep it clean. Just waiting for the okay here. I'm assuming we're going to get going shortly. Knick-Knack is saying he's unable to take over his car. What's happening here? Well, we did have a mess of drivers leave and rejoin. Oh, that could be a problem. I don't know. That could very well be a problem here. It won't let me. Problem is they can't take over to start. Are we going? So Ghost will be everywhere. Urban is ensuring that the cars will be taken over at the start of the Grand Prix. What I do know is that will not allow... well, we're going to find out what the problems is. 3, 4, and 5 lights here. Only some drivers are ready to go. I hope you are, because we are underway in Spa. Off the line they go. Walrus has gotten a good start. Finally, the Alfa Romeo of Knick-Knack is able to take over his car. Reimer gets to second. Knick-Knack will stay third. There's a huge jumble of cars ghosted in and outside of each other as they make their way through the first corner. And I'm actually kind of glad. That would have been the better option there, as those drivers were in a massive jumble as they make their way now up through Rouge and Radion for the first time in this 22-lap Grand Prix. Bongen is under a lot of pressure here, but who is under pressure is Reimer, who round the outside will have Knick-Knack paddywhack. Urban is off at the back, exiting Radion then. He looks like he's gotten the car back up to grips, but Angry Walrus has taken a second advantage over Knick-Knack in the calamity at the beginning of the race. What I was about to say is that Knick-Knack will not have control over his tire strategy. That's why now he's starting on the softs. Matter of fact, a lot of drivers have started on the softs. I'm actually a little bit surprised. Lap 9 to 10 is your soft to medium. Lap, well, does it tell me anything else? No, it doesn't. So we're going to assume that probably around lap 15 is when we'll see those mediums in. But for the time being, Walrus still has the top spot. Guzman will get around Hemphead here. It looks as if Guzman has had a great beginning into the Grand Prix. He's up to 8th position already, which, if you know Guzman, he just started P17. So, yeah, he's quite happy with that. Matter of fact, John the Prince hasn't had a bad start either. He's up 4 spots. We do have Shiesty and Johnny Damon side by side as they go through Stavilo. The Alfa Romeo on the outside. He's got to be careful. And, well, somehow he has gotten ahead of Shiesty then. Good move. And now Guzman around the outside of Bong through Blanchimont. That's a very difficult corner to get right side by side. And they've done just that. As the first lap of the Grand Prix comes to an end here, Angry Walrus leads. Lap 10 to something or another from medium to hard. I doubt we're going to see any drivers on the medium to hard strategy, but what we do see now is Knick-Knack really up close here to Angry Walrus. As a matter of fact, Reimer's off the pace of the top 2 by about 2 seconds here, which is a little surprising. I think Reimer might be on the hards. Now he's on the mediums, but either way, a little bit surprising of a gap to see there. As they go down the Kemmel Straight now, Guzman here trying to look for an overtake on Charlie Gulf as they make their way in towards the Lacombe chicane here. Whether it happens or not, no, probably not this time. Remember, DRS will be activated next time. Shiesty and Tony Lenta side by side. Tony Lenta up 5 spots since the beginning of the race, which is great to see for him after the calamity and the shenanigans that happened in the sprint race. Although Shiesty will look down to the inside now. Oh, and that's definitely contact. And the Haas goes round. And I'm thinking, did Tony Lenta go around as well? No, that car stays on. I chalk that one up to pure racing incident, has to be said. I mean, it was tough to tell. I think Tony Lenta was definitely comfortable around the outside. And as, you know, you try to go side by side through Brussels, it's a really tight corner when you think about it. I mean, Charlie, maybe did he overshoot the braking zone? I mean, I don't know. I could be wrong. I didn't initially see anything wrong with Tony Lenta just then. But Guzman now to the right side as they make their way out of Stavilo in towards Blanchemont now, and it looks as if the Haas of... No, it's the Red Bull of Owa, and we got a virtual safety car on track here as Owa finds his way. This is in between Campus and Stavilo, and I think that car, yep, that front wing is gone, so that'll be the reason the virtual safety car has come out. Thankfully, not the full safety car. We had that, I believe, in Brazil is that problem. Now, this is interesting. We have Guzman in the pits already. That is a really bold decision here. What could he possibly be pitting for? Does he have wing damage? The crew aren't ready to change wings. No, he's going to the medium tires. That is a very bold and early stop there from both Guzman and Tony Lenta, although I'm sure Tony Lenta might have damage at this point. He started the race on the hards, however. Yeah, I'm not quite sure. What does that put him on here? Now he's gone to the medium, so a couple of drivers going for pit stops here. His virtual safety car still on track. That'll at least allow Walrus to have a good little advantage over Nick Nack for now. Nick Nack here looking to see if he can get any sort of advantage once this virtual safety car is no longer deployed here. As much as these virtual safety cars are supposed to neutralize the field, there are ways to take advantage of it. You know, if you can just time the delta correctly, as I think we're going to see Angry Walrus do here, as they make their way into Puhan, and there it goes. Although Anyote and I think Pontiac Bandit as well, both picking up drive-through penalties for speeding onto the virtual safety car. Yes, they have. So even more unfortunate circumstance there for Anyote, who started on pole of the sprint race, dropped down to P11. Which, you know, despite losing that many positions, he was at least in a spot where he was clean. You know, he wasn't in any incidents. He could at least know that the car was on track and he had some heavy hitters behind him. So here we have Johnny Damon about 0.3 of a second but behind Hemphead. We also have Bongit trying to make his way to Charlie Gulf here. Will Bongit try the move into the bus stop chicane? No, it's not going to happen this time. Although maybe once DRS is activated here, we'll see this move happen. Only two DRS sections on this track. One of them happening now down the pit straight. It's a majority useless DRS section, but here we see Johnny Damon using the best of it in towards La Source now, and I think he's going to get this one. Hemphead locks up around the outside. Johnny Damon stays low, and I think he's gotten away good enough. Yes, he has. Up through the Kemmel Straight now, and this is where I'm thinking we may see Nick Nack come out to an advantage here. At the moment, he's about 10 mile an hour faster than Angry Walrus, and that's what's having that DRS is going to do for you. And down the Kemmel Straight here, Charlie Gulf down to the inside of Armanson, and now Bongit tried to make the look down to the inside as well. He didn't have the room, but he definitely was looking for it, as Charlie Gulf, a 3-second penalty, and I think, well, that's, I have no idea where he's picked that up. I don't know where he could have picked it up going into La Source, or not La Source, into Lacombe. My guess is he would have picked it up coming out of Malmedy on the outside, but that's not where it's happened. Very odd. Nick Nack here within a 0.7 of a second of Angry Walrus. It has to be said, though, I think the only place of the track where that Alfa Romeo might be better is the straight line. Although, we've also only seen him with DRS. So, I don't know. For the time being, though, Walrus looks to have him match anywhere with slow speed. So through Sector 2, and up through the beginning of Sector 1, that Aston Martin looks the better car. And for the time being, he's actually kind of pulling Nick Nack here. That gap was about 0.7 exiting Stavilo. It's about, well, it did peak at about 8.5 tenths. Angry Walrus fastest lap, and then Nick Nack takes it. He's on the softs as well. Which I'm actually quite surprised. Those medium tires of the Aston Martin are holding up very well. 3-second penalty for, I believe it said Bongit there, which is going to be unfortunate for him. Up the hill through Eau Rouge now, at the DRS detection zone, coming out of, at the start-finish line of the Support Series pit straight. I don't think Nick Nack's going to have DRS here. No, he doesn't. So Nick Nack is at a massive disadvantage now as we have a couple of cars round at the bus stop chicane. It's Pontiac Bandit and Anyote. Something has happened with the pair of them, but we stay green. Down the Kemmel Straight now, Johnny Damon's going to try to look for the outside on Bung and into Lacombe. Oh, goodness. Oh, okay, good. Well, that was definitely lag, but on my screen you just saw Bung absolutely clobber the back of the Aston Martin there. Goodness me. Sometimes it's just the connection difference. I'm actually quite glad I'm not live streaming this, because at the moment that would have been we would definitely be seeing a lot more lag. So, yeah. So the grid, has to be said, slightly starting to get spread out here. Closest battle on track is that of Johnny Damon back to R. Manson. As Johnny Damon, I tell you what, really putting the pressure on the Aston Martin here. He's not going to have an opportunity, really, to overtake him. Maybe exiting Stavilo would be my guess. Let's see if he does it now. Who gets the better exit? And I would argue that Aston Martin got away much better. It's a tricky corner, because as much as you want to put the power down, you got to be careful. There's a barrier jutting out on the left side immediately as you exit the corner, and if you hit pretty much any of the curb at all, that car could go round. That's one of the best things about this track. There's just so many ins and outs of this circuit that you need to know to be successful. And for the time being, Angry Walrus, well, I hate to say this, he is pulling away from the Alfa Romeo here. That's a 2.5 second gap. As soon as Nick Nack didn't have DRS, I mean, it has to be said, Walrus has been pulling away. What we do know is Nick Nack started the race on the softs. That wasn't by his design. Remember, there's a couple drivers who couldn't initially get back into the car. Nick Nack was one of them, and that's why he wasn't able to change his tire strategy. So for starting on the softs for him, this is about the time I would expect the mediums to kind of come into play as the better tire, as now Guzman, as Agnote has retired, that being in the pit lane, but Guzman has gotten around the outside curveball there as they make their way into Lacombe. Remember, Guzman pit relatively early. This was under the virtual safety car on what I believe was the first or second lap of the Grand Prix. That car decided to come in, which I thought was very odd. As we see now, this is always something to look out for here. The ghost of Agnote is exiting the pit lane. I have seen a safety car been deployed for robots making their way out, as Johnny Damon making their way around the outside of R. Manson there, and he'll have him by the time they get into Campus and Stavilo here. That was a great move from Johnny Damon, a gutsy place to make it happen, as Shiesty in the Haas picks up 3 seconds of time penalty. Got a neat little 3 or 4 car battle here. Urban, 3 seconds of penalty for him. Tony Lenta picks up penalties as well. Very unfortunate. 2.5 seconds the gap for the lead. It's a nice little train of cars here from about P6 all the way down to P10, P11 here. As they... Oh, that's that... R. Manson's gone around. Yes, he has. Well, he had absolutely cooked it on the throttle exiting the bus stop chicane, and that car shot to the inside of the track, and he has lost all the positions which he initially had gained. He was off to such a good start there, and, well, he's lost positions now. Thankfully, it doesn't appear that he's really hit anything. Oh! Someone who has hit things is bong it there! That was one of the more violent crashes I've seen. Very reminiscent to Lando Norris atop that corner. The front wing is gone. It's on the track. That's why the safety car has come out. The car hasn't DNF'd, although by the sheer speed that he hit the barrier there, I'm very surprised that car is still drivable. He had absolutely clobbered the barrier on the left side. Well, as much as I still think it's a bit of a lame safety car, they're having front wing bring out the safety car. The safety car is what we have. Now, the only slight bits of it were on the racing surface itself. I think we could have gotten away with a virtual safety car there, but this will be a good opportunity for Nick Nack to get back to position on Angry Walrus here. And we're definitely going to have some takers for the pit lane this time by. Let's see, I'm assuming anybody on the mediums could decide to come in for the hards here. Although, if you're on the softs, like several of these drivers are, going to the mediums might be a valid strategy. They look to be holding on very, very well. Matter of fact, John the Prince in the McLaren is the only driver on the grid currently on the hards. So that means we relatively don't know enough to judge said hard tires. Well, Walrus, as we predicted on the way in, Nick Nack will follow suit. Reimer now, he's one of those drivers that does like to kind of be the outlier. He will decide to come in, though. I've seen Reimer time and time again has made decisions to just stay out on track, whether it be kind of detrimental to strategy or not. I think sometimes it's almost mind games from him. So only sometimes do they work, but I tell you what, Reimer definitely gets creative with his tire strategy, and predictably it's hard tires for the top three. Merck, well, he'll do it as well. Johnny Damon in here, I'm assuming the hards for him, and I tell you what, it looks a pretty successful double stack here for the Alfa Romeo team. Mediums for Charlie. The only driver so far to take mediums, aside from now John the Prince, who's decided to come in. Curveball, I'm assuming the hard tires for him. Yes, it is. Tony Lenta to the softs. That's a bold one. Urban onto the hards as well. Bong it to the mediums. Pontiac Bandit, drive-through penalty for speeding under the safety car. As the leaders have only now picked up the safety car, this is making their way into Lacombe. Some of those drivers may have still been under Delta, and that's why they've picked up that penalty. Well, the top three remain in order here. I'll step aside until the safety car decides to come in. So the safety car will be making its way in at the end of this lap. The majority of the drivers, as you can see, have taken the hard tires. A lot of them well, a couple of them at least, on the mediums, which might actually be better. I know it sounds crazy, but those medium tires were holding up very, very well for Angry Walrus. Now, whether they can go 12 laps of a Grand Prix is up for debate, but they at least made it about 7 or 8 there when the safety car had come out. I don't rightly know what the tire degradation percentage was at, but it looked at least still very good. What we do have now is a situation with the top 4 drivers on even Stevens as far as tires are concerned. Charlie Gulf, one of the only drivers, in fact, the only driver in the top 10 with a penalty. So all out, flat out, on-track action yet to come here. That's a look at the penalties. We'll keep that open for now as Angry Walrus makes his way into the bus stop chicane here. As we look to get back to green, when does he decide to step on it here? The answer is now. Exits the corner. Green flag back in the air here as they make their way down the pit straight. Angry Walrus has 0.4 of a second on Nick Knack as they make their way into the first corner. Looks as if the pair of the McLarens are inverting positions here. Guzman up to 8th. John the Prince down to 9th as they exit La Source now, looking to go in towards Al Rouge and Radion. Remember, Nick Knack had a 2.5 second disadvantage to Angry Walrus when the safety car had come out. So now Nick Knack is on level pegging with Angry Walrus, but for the time being, that Aston Martin still looks faster. We definitely thought in the straight line the Alfa Romeo had the advantage. That didn't appear to be the case, as the Haas of Charlie Gulf trying to pressure Merck, also under pressure from Johnny Damon here. Making their way out of Malmedy into Brussels now. It looks as if everything has stayed calm off the restart. We are going to be looking at Tony Lenson. Note, Guzman has actually gotten down the inside of Hemphead there, that time going through Brussels. Slightly unorthodox place to make a move happen, but a good one nonetheless. Then again, we did see Johnny Damon go side by side with Charlie through Puhan in the sprint race, which I thought he was out of his mind, but well, I tell you what, that does prove a testament to Nick Knack's driving ability. They went clean through the corner. It wasn't until they got here into campus that there was actually any problem involved. And as they exit Stavilo now, Angry Walrus has already cooked up a second advantage over Nick Knack. Behind here, Guzman will look to the outside. He's had a couple of these moves already through Blanchimont now. Will he do it again? Johnny Damon to the inside. Guzman's going to have to lift a little bit. Contact definitely being made there. And how he was able to hold on to the car, I'll never know. Because that car looked as if it was going around, and then he'll try to strike back. Johnny Damon to the outside. Guzman switches to the inside. A bit of oversteer there for the McLaren, and I think that's the only reason he won't be getting this spot into La Source. Guzman, I don't know how those two drivers held onto the cars the way they did going through Blanchimont. I've had several looks at incidents there, both through broadcasting and driving in leagues myself, trying to go side by side through there, and it almost never ends well. But they've done it. They've done it for the time being. No DRS quite yet. That'll be open next time by. What we have here is Charlie Gulf, who looking to try to overtake Merck here. Merck is about half a second down of Reimer. As, well, it's about 1.5 seconds separate each of the top 3 from each other. Reimer is, I would say, very much under pressure here from Merck, considering next time by, Reimer will not have DRS to any of the drivers ahead. Johnny Damon has gone quite wide into Brussels then. Guzman had a look down to the inside, not quite enough room to make it happen. And it has to be said, Guzman looks good until he gets into the back end, or, well, really the middle of this second sector. The car looks great, and then you just saw a slight mistake exiting Speaker's Corner. And, well, I thought we were looking at this during the sprint race, where it really looked as if this car was more on the understeer side as Merck has gone wide. exiting campus. And then Johnny Damon's going to go wide, going through Stavilo now. Oh, goodness me, that's contact. How Johnny Damon didn't clobber the outside barrier there. That looked very close to being catastrophic. I've only seen 2 red flags in my entire time commentating throughout this F1 23 game. That would have absolutely had been another one. Charlie Golf on the Haas will pick up an additional 3-second time penalty. That puts him up to 6. We do now have DRS activated, although the only driver with DRS at the moment will be that of Guzman back to Charlie. As Walrus has a 1.5 seconds over Knick-Knack. Knick-Knack is about 2.5 seconds over Reimer. And for the time being, Guzman's going to be outside DRS zone on Charlie. He's not going to get it down the Kemmel Straight here. Charlie might get it to Reimer. No, he doesn't. Guzman won't get it to Charlie. Merck is in a bit of a trouble here. Hemphead around the outside. Damon down the inside. Tony Lenta around the outside as well. Merck just lost 3 spots there, and Tony Lenta into the runoff area there. I think maybe was there contact involved with Johnny Damon, but Merck just had one hell of an experience there. Goodness me. I mean, he looked as if I was trying to run a marathon alongside Usain Bolt. I mean, seriously, he was an absolute barrier in between those groups of cars. As Johnny Damon now down to the inside on Hemphead, and he's backed out of it. He's had to go heavy over the inside curve. Oh, in contact with Merck, and that may be another safety car there as the front wing is off of Merck, and the safety car on track, and that's the second time we've seen a Ferrari-powered car bring out the safety car with a front wing being lost. And, well, it's a very interesting situation that, because as much as Johnny Damon will claim it was Merck's fault, I think Johnny Damon really set that chain of events into action when he went heavy over the inside curb heading into Puhan, which is not typically a thing you want to happen. And that car may have just pushed to the outside in front of Johnny Damon there, or of Merck, and that may have very well been happened. Tony Lenta picks up a drive-through penalty for speeding under the virtual safety car. Actually, sorry, Hemphead will do that, as it looks as if Walrus, Reimer stay out. Knick-Knack decides to come in, so the medium tires here for Knick-Knack would actually be a very good choice, and yep, to the mediums he goes. Shiesty picks up 5 seconds for speeding into the pit lane, so the Haas boys having a little bit of trouble with penalties at the moment. That'll promote our old friend John the Prince up to 3rd, which, if you remember, started this Grand Prix P18 after crashing out in the sprint race. That'll promote Curveball to 4th. And I tell you what, none of the guys in the top 6 look to be on bad tire strategy at the moment, has to be said. Although, an interesting dilemma this, Knick-Knack is the only driver to have pit under this safety car to go to the medium tires. Everybody else have taken the softs. Bold situation that. I'll step aside as the safety car sorts itself out. Angry Walrus still has the lead of this Grand Prix. Safety car in at the end of this lap. While we were away, both R. Manson and Johnny Damon have pit. R. Manson to the mediums, Johnny Damon to the softs. Well, for some, it's been a sense of calm. For others, it's been carnage here in the heart of the Ardennes Forest. 13th round of the season, we knew it was going to be either lucky or unlucky 13 here. But we have an interesting situation now with the top 6 drivers all on what is undoubtedly the slower compounds of tires. Everybody else, barring R. Manson, has gone to the softs. Whether or not the softs can make it to the end of the Grand Prix is another question, but I think for now, what we do know is that at least these top 5 can make it comfortably to the end. Everybody else, slightly a different question. I'm a little surprised to see Knick-Knack having taken the mediums under that stop. Everybody else behind him who had pit had taken the softs. As they exit the bus stop chicane now, green flag back in the air here. Lap 15 of 22. We are beyond halfway, as I think Hemphead on his way in, he had picked up a drive-through penalty for speeding under the safety car, and then he picks up a 5-second penalty for speeding into the pit lane. Wonder how many speeding tickets he's picked up in his lifetime. Anyways, what we have here, as they make their way up through Rouge and Radion, Charlie Golf now really pressuring Knick-Knack here as they make their way down the Kemmel Straight already. Angry Walrus has almost a second and a half advantage over Reimer for the top spot as they make their way into Lacombe, as Merck picks up 3 seconds of time penalty in the proceedings. Now both himself and his Ferrari teammate have bung it on 3 seconds. Knick-knack, paddywhack, looking down to the inside of Urban into Brussels, and the Mercedes goes round. Oh, and is collected by, I think, who was that? That was either the Haas of Charlie Gulf, perhaps was it one of the McLarens? Somebody just clobbered the side of the Mercedes, and the second DNF of the day goes to Urban. As, well, he had gotten tagged from behind, and the car had gone right into the barriers. It wasn't the contact with the barriers that caused it. It was whoever came up from behind and just sideswiped that Mercedes, and, well, that'll be the end of his day. Knick-knack, paddywhack now trying to pressure curveball on the medium tires. Knick-knack's looking pretty good here, has to be said. He'll get down to the inside of curveball, almost no problem whatsoever. John the Prince now, he's on the mediums. He's looking to get past Reimer here. What we are seeing is that some of these guys on the medium tires have actually migrated to the top faster than those on the softs, which I find actually quite interesting. I would have thought that the softs were going to have a massive advantage off the start here. That doesn't appear to be the case. The Haas of Charlie on his way in, so I'm thinking it was that Haas who ran into the side of Urban there. Let's see if we get the front wing brigade on the way out here. We'll know that that's the case. And it does look as if, well, we do have a yellow flag. Hemphead's gone around. Angry Walrus, however, while we were away from him, picked up 3 seconds of time penalty. Now that was going up through El Rouge. So maybe he just took too much to the inside, or maybe on exit took too much to the outside. Very difficult corner to get right. And, well, Walrus now has a slight handicap here, as long as Reimer can stay within 3 seconds of him. Meanwhile, Tony Lenta got around curveball there. Nicely done. We just kind of caught on to that one. Knick-knack, paddywhack here now has the McLaren of John the Prince in the way, and he's got Guzman behind. Now Guzman on the much quicker tires than the two ahead. Even if Knick-knack's mediums are fresh, I would argue the softs are still better, as now Guzman tries to have a look down to the inside into Campus. Not going to happen. Or Paul Friard, one of the two. I'm not rightly sure what the corners are, but either way. As they go through Stavilo now, Tony Lenta's actually in this battle as well. Despite having 3 seconds of penalty, he's there. John the Prince has 8.5 tenths over Knick-knack. Sorry, that's John the Prince, Reimer over John the Prince. As now, look at this, 3 cars battle. John the Prince, I think, did he get tagged from Knick-knack going through Blanchimont? And I think that's exactly what's happened as the McLaren goes round. Well, I think, thankfully, all bits of carbon fiber have stayed attached to the McLaren, but a driver who fought his way back up the grid now finds it exactly where he started, which is just so unfortunate. That driver really had an impressive race today as Owa and Johnny Damon down to the inside on Merck, and it looks as if the Ferrari's going to be losing positions here. Yes, he will. John the Prince, somebody check on my boy, because he has just had himself a heartbreaking moment there, has to be said. To the inside now goes Guzman on Reimer, and Reimer, who has been looking, I don't want to say slow isn't the word, but Guzman is definitely the quicker of the drivers for the time being on the softs. And as they exit Malmedy now, Guzman has already shaven off 4 tenths of a second to Angry Walrus's advantage that he had over Reimer. That'll allow Reimer now. Reimer's in an interesting spot. Does he allow Knick-knack to go past, or does he try to defend? All the while, Guzman is pulling away ahead, and he's on the soft tire, so he'll only continue to do that for the time being. It doesn't appear that Reimer's trying to cede position to Knick-knack. Reimer knows there's still a podium at play here. Well, this is a very interesting dilemma Reimer has here. He knows, I think he's being outpaced by the Alfa Romeo at the moment, but he doesn't appear to not necessarily understand that, but give in to it, as Knick-knack now is going to have to go the long way around as they head towards Blanchimont. Now, this was not long ago. We just saw Johnny Damon, Knick-knack, and I believe it was that of John the Prince have their little spat. We have a yellow flag at the back, and it's the Ferrari of Merck. Now, this is the second time he's lost the front wing, and the second time the safety car comes out for him. It was the third time in general for the Ferraris causing safety car here. They've gone through a lot of carbon fiber from the boys from Maranello, and they've done it again, and now we see a slew of drivers try to make some game-changing decisions here. Reimer comes in. He finally fits the softs. The overcut for Reimer, which we thought really wasn't going to work, has actually played out okay for him. What this is going to mean is that Angry Walrus stays out. He's on the hard tires, and he now has 3 seconds of penalty to try to negotiate here. Guzman in second on the softs, which are going to last longer, considering now he'll be spending time under safety car. We now have as well Nick Knack, who, despite being on the medium tires, not in a bad position here, although he is engulfed in a sea of drivers on the soft tires, as well as R. Manson, who in P6 here, on older mediums to those who behind had just pit for fresh softs. That's a lot going on there, has to be said. I think next time by will only be 4 laps to go. I'm going to cut away to brake for the safety car now, because they still have to pick up the safety car and then make their way at the end of the lap. So, yeah, I'll step aside for the time being, but we are going to have one hell of a conclusion to this Grand Prix for you. Sorry to interrupt, Walrus is on the way in, as well as Guzman. Well, what's happened here? Why is Guzman pitting? He doesn't necessarily have that much of an advantage. This will hand Nick Knack Paddywhack the lead of the Grand Prix, which, in fairness, despite Nick Knack not necessarily being able to hang with the pace of Angry Walrus, that is about the last person you want to have inherit the lead of the Grand Prix here. Does Walrus get out ahead of Johnny Damon? No, he doesn't. Next time by, we'll have 3 laps to go. I'm assuming we're going to see the safety car in at the end of this lap, but we were about to see Angry Walrus and Guzman perhaps turn themselves into a 1 and 2 here. We now have an Alfa Romeo top 2. And, well, what we have here is this. I'm not going to go bananas yet, but what I do know is Nick Knack on 6-lap-old mediums. His tires aren't terrible. They're not good, but they will be fine by the end of the Grand Prix. Johnny Damon, not so much. 5-lap-old softs. And I think that's what we saw Walrus and Guzman do just then, was them kind of realize that everybody else behind had pit, and they made a very late decision. Now, they've gone down to P3 and P4. We know that Walrus is going to be losing spots with his 3-second penalty unless he can get away to some sort of miracle beginning here as they start the final end of the final couple of laps of the Grand Prix. Speaking of penalties, I'll open up the penalty tracker now. 4 drivers on 3 seconds of penalties, that being Walrus, Bongit, Shiesty, and Merck. So the pair of Ferraris there. Something to keep in mind. Tony Lenta on 9 seconds, 2 of which were for just plain track limits, and then the third was for corner cutting. I'm not sure where he's picked up the corner cutting penalty, but he's done just that. And Charlie Gulf on 6 seconds himself. Now, with 3 laps to go, this time by, the safety... Oh, it still hasn't come in. This is wild here, because this is allowing Nick Knack to conserve those tires even more, as well as Johnny Damon. Oh, why is that safety car not in? I understand Charlie Gulf and Hemphead are off at the back, but I mean, in all fairness to them, and I really hope they don't get upset, we got ourselves a battle for the win here, and we'll have 3 laps to go this time by, 2 to go once the race restarts. If you were a Mercedes fan for the 2021 season, you know what's about to happen here. And I'm sorry I had to bring back that memory for you, but... Sorry, it had to be done. I'm sorry. Nothing I could do. Safety car within the last 2 laps of the Grand Prix. I mean, this is just such an odd turn of events here. It's very difficult, isn't it? Because I think, again, I don't know what setting we are specifically on for safety car. But, I mean, some of these safety car calls are a bit whack. I can understand virtual safety car. I can even understand a full safety car when you got the entirety of a front wing littered across the track. That just becomes a danger. But when we have drivers crash and spin and they lose their front wing and it's not even on the racing surface itself, which I believe has been the cause for at least 2 safety cars today, do we really need safety cars being brought out for that? Virtual safety cars would do just fine. Well, I'll leave that up for debate, but what will not be up for debate here is Angry Walrus, who is in a very difficult spot, being on 3 seconds of time penalty, and it's not like the majority of the grid have those penalties either. It would have been fine if, 10 drivers or, 12 drivers had these time penalties. No, it's only, 6? And now with the safety car, with 2 laps to go this time by, Walrus is just going to have no time to try to get around this penalty. I mean, it's unfortunate, I don't want to say it's his fault, because, you picked up the penalty, you serve the consequences for exceeding track limits that many times, but I just wish that he would have been given a slightly more fair shot to try to overcome this penalty. Unfortunately, he's going to be left with 2 laps to go here. He's got the pair of Alfa Romeos ahead of him, and as the safety car in at the end of this lap, all eyes now, I think, turn to Guzman. Will he be able to get around Walrus and challenge for the top 2 spots? Remember, the pair of the Alfa Romeos are on older tires. 7-lap-old medium for Knick-Knack, so he's going to be arguably worse than Johnny Damon. 6-lap-old softs, not ideal either. I would say definitely, noticeably on worse tires than those around him. Everybody else minus R. Manson on the softs. Meanwhile, R. Manson, look at the day he's having, doing very good. Guzman, for the time being, driver of the day, up 13 positions after having started P17 in the sprint race, after himself and his teammate crashing out of the sprint. Knick-Knack looks like he's going to get it back going now as they head into the bus stop chicane. There is a 7/10 of a second advantage over his teammate, and now with 2 laps to go, this is where heroics and heroes are made and performed. Does Angry Walrus try anything here? He knows that he needs to get around Johnny Damon. Guzman in position as well. Guzman knows, I would think, that himself and Angry Walrus are at least the 2 quickest drivers out of the top 4. Walrus tried to go to the left side on Damon, up through Eau Rouge. That would have been spectacular. Curveball in 3 seconds now. Walrus, can he find anything now? Johnny Damon is going to defend like a lion here. The great Italian wall chooses the inside. Manson will lose the spot to Reimer. Reimer back to 5th. Remember, he was in position to have one of the top couple of spots before he decided to pit late on. And now, Angry Walrus, after almost getting in, and we have Manson around. And what was a great result going to be for the Aston Martins, assuming they can hold it, is now turned into slightly not good. Walrus down to the inside. Guzman nearly... Okay, that might have to be looked at with the penalties there. Walrus, I don't know if he provided Guzman enough space there as they went through Speaker's Corner, but either way, Guzman now has a 3-second penalty, and that is all but assured the victory for either one of the Alfa Romeos. And Guzman, well, I think he could have taken that corner around Angry Walrus better, but that displeasure definitely on display. Guzman might have a word with the stewards there, because I'm not sure Angry Walrus afforded him enough space exiting Speaker's Corner. If Guzman tries to go for Johnny Damon and Knick-Knack, I think he'll believe that the case to have the penalty removed will be on there. And now, into the bus stop chicane, nearly contact with the back of Johnny Damon. There's contact with Johnny Damon. The Alfa Romeo nearly had gone around. Guzman wanted to check up. He couldn't in time. Final lap of the Grand Prix underway, and Knick-Knack, who, by all and large here, I tell you what, right place at the right time. Oh, look at this! Contact there! Guzman forced his way down to the inside of Johnny Damon. Damon now losing position to Angry Walrus as well. Well, Guzman's, I think, could even face a penalty from the maneuver on Johnny Damon there. Either it was error from Johnny Damon, or from what the initial looking was, is that Guzman really tried to send it on the Alfa Romeo then. And now Reimer in position now to take 2nd place if he can simply get around Johnny Damon. He's about a half a lap to do so. Hemp head with the penalty now. And now we're seeing a situation where if you do have a penalty, you may not lose out all that much. Yellow flag. It's the Aston Martin of R. Manson, who I think has gone around there. And now Tony Lentz, another 3 seconds for him. That puts him up to 12. Reimer now, as Johnny Damon on the 3-second penalty as well. Reimer knows second place is on here. Guzman trying the outside. Does he try to look for Knick-Knack here as they make their way into Stavilo now? As Walrus tries it round the outside, nothing for Walrus. As Walrus now, a 3-second additional time penalty for him. That'll put him at 6. A driver which had such a brilliant day, and the penalty, I would think, could have played on his mind here, as Guzman trying the right side through Blanchimont. He's on a 3-second penalty. He thinks maybe he could get it taken off here. Guzman into the final chicane. He'll try to outbrake around the outside. If he can push Knick-Knack wide, he could have a chance. Exiting the final corner, and Knick-Knack will get away with it and take the win here in Belgium. Guzman, what an effort at the end there. Reimer's actually going to be about 0.2 short of second place. Wow. Oh, trackside, I think you may have missed out tonight, dude. I know you're not feeling well, but you would have had a blast with this one. Knick-Knack, unofficially the winner. Remember, steward reports can still come into play, and we might just have a few of those. Guzman, either way, picking up driver of the day, and that is definitely deserved for him. Well, after it's all said and done here at Spa, bearing in mind that steward reports could influence the final results here. These are all unofficial until steward reports come out. It's Knick-Knack taking the win, Guzman second, Reimer third, Owa in fourth, Angry Walrus fifth, Johnny Damon sixth, Bong at seventh, John the Prince eighth, ninth Curveball, 10th is Shiesty, 11th Tony Lenta, 12th is R. Manson, 13th Charlie Gulf, 14th is Pontiac Bandit, 15th Merc, Hemphead is 16th, 17th is Urban, and unfortunately for, Urban and Onutse there, they do not get to finish the Grand Prix. Well, I tell you what, that's about the standard for what Spa will give you. There will be calamity, there will be carnage, but there will be a hell of a lot of good racing. And, well, next week we head to the Circuit Gilles Villeneuve in Montreal, what I consider my home Grand Prix. That's only a 4-hour drive for me for round 14 of the CCRL season. Hotspot, it's been a pleasure joining you along here once again, and we'll see you next week.